I put together my do-it-yourself camper shell. Like I described in a previous video, I made this for a trip to head out to Montana. It is not a slide-in camper. It just clamps or bolts down to the rails of the truck, and then the inside is just modular pieces of furniture. So in full disclosure, when I'm building stuff, I'm really terrible about taking videos, and I'm awful about taking pictures, but I do have a few. Some people have asked for a video showing the construction method, so this is kind of what I've got. So I started with a 1x cedar frame, which I scribed to the exact width of the truck bed rails. So I don't have a picture of this, but I showed it on a truck in yellow there. I joined the edges of this with epoxy and pocket screws. I then coated the bottom of it in epoxy. And then the side that's facing the truck has got some 1-inch foam that's scribed to fit and attached with 3M90. And so that's really my attachment point. For most of the build, it was just clamped down with some C-clamps. I did end up drilling some holes and attaching it to my truck bed. Took it back off for the winter, and I'm hoping the holes will line up and I'll be able to reattach it next summer. Once I had that 1x frame down, I just kind of built it like a house. Honestly, it's probably overbuilt, but I made the walls out of 1x2s and 2x2s. They're all put together with pocket screws and Titebond 3. I chose to use clear pine that I picked up at Home Depot. I didn't feel like dealing with knots or warps or things like that. Probably a little bit more expensive, but in the end, I think it was easier. And one important thing to note is nothing is permanently attached at this point. Each of the walls, the side facing the truck bed, the camper, the two sides and the back are all independent walls, and I did that for a reason. I decided to go with just regular old house windows. I didn't feel like paying the money for camper windows. House windows are better insulated. So I picked up some cheap windows from Menards. I think they're framed out to 34 by 14 inches. So they kind of fit in those openings, and again, just framed like a house would be framed. The sides have 1x2s on edge that are attached with some pocket screws, and that is to accept the roof rafters eventually. Here's a picture of the windows I picked up. They were $56 a piece at Menards. Really pretty lightweight, well insulated, sliders with screens, and so it worked out well for me. I then took all the walls back down. Again, they weren't attached to each other or attached to the frame. I added 1/4-inch plywood to the outside using some brads and Titebond 3. I covered everything with fiberglass cloth and 3 coats of epoxy while everything was laying flat. I then turned them over. I used Thinsulate insulation. Honestly, I used Thinsulate instead of Blue Board or something like that because I had some Thinsulate laying around that I had bought for a van project. I cut it to fit in the stud bays, put it with the white side facing out. So you've got some pictures there where on the left side there, those two pieces have actually been put in. Those white pieces have got to be flipped over and glued in. And then I put everything in with a little bit of 3M90. This is the insulation I used. A lot of people use it for vans. It doesn't absorb moisture. It's not itchy at all. It's really easy to cut. It's non-toxic. It's pretty expensive. But like I said, it comes in 5-foot rolls, and I had a bunch of it laying around, so I chose to use that. All right, so once I had everything skinned on the outside, fiberglassed, sanded down, I had the insulation put in. I stuck everything back on the truck, and at this point in time, I screwed it down to that cedar frame, and I screwed and glued the walls to each other, again using screws and Titebond 3. At that point in time, I framed the roof up. I used 2x2s as roof joists running across. I left an opening there for the ceiling fan eventually. And then I added some stringers down the middle and some frames on the outside that would allow me to attach the ceiling eventually. At that point, everything was pretty locked down and solid. It wasn't going to move or rack. So I took it off the truck and I put it on a stand in my shop, and I finished everything from here until I stuck it back on. All right, at this point in time, I'm terrible about taking pictures, so I have 0 pictures of the windows being installed. But what I did is I stuck the window in the opening. It has a really little flange on it, and instead of screwing through the flange into the truck outside, which would be a place where things could leak, these are actually reed mod windows as well. So I just put some stainless steel throughs through the jambs and into the side 2x. I then covered the entire outside flange with a piece of roofing ice and water shield, and then I covered that up with some wood trim. I cut a little rabbet out of the side so that ice and water in the roof flange had a place to, and the window flange had a place to sit. And then that was all glued and epoxied to the side of the camper. After that, I painted everything up. But like I said, no good pictures of that happening. This picture is of the inside, and it's a lot further along in construction. But what I did was I finished the ceiling with some pre-finished 1/4-inch plywood that I had laying around. It had a pre-finished surface on one side. I think it actually was like refrigerator paneling. I ran all of the electrical up in the ceiling. Nothing runs in the walls. And then as far as the walls themselves, it's just some cheap 1/4-inch plywood that I painted. Before I added any of the actual roofing itself, I put a little small overhang on the back. Really the reason for that was a couple of things. It gave me a place to run the eventual wiring for the turn signals and the marker lights and things like that. And it also provides just a tiny bit of overhang that keeps a little bit of water off the back doors. And then I trimmed the entire outside out with a 1x3 going all the way around all 4 sides. So here's a kind of a sketch of the way that ends up looking in cross section. So I've got the sidewall and the roof. I have that piece of 1x3 trim that runs up to the top of the sidewall. I then put 1/4-inch plywood over top of all of that. It extends out over that side 1x3. I then covered that 1/4-inch plywood in 6-ounce fiberglass that wraps down over the 1x3, 3 coats of epoxy and 3 coats of paint. Kind of built exactly like a boat. There's absolutely no way it would ever leak whatsoever, so really, really confident that there'll be no chance for water to get in there at all. So there's a picture of the roof before I put anything on it. Like I said, I ran all the wiring through the roof. And then I tested everything. I insulated it with Thinsulate again because I had Thinsulate left over. Covered it in 1/4-inch ply, fiberglass, 3 coats of epoxy. And there's that 1x3 that runs around the outside, and that 1/4-inch plywood overlaps that and then wraps down across that trim board to seal any kind of water out. No pictures again of door construction, but I built the doors myself. I looked around at like some teardrop doors, really too expensive, $400 or $500 for one door that would end up being too small anyway. So I went ahead and built some doors myself. I really love the double door feature. I do miss the tailgate in that I can't sit on it and things like that, but the doors being able to open both of them up were great. So the doors themselves are 3/4-inch plywood. I cut a bunch of voids out, filled those voids with blue board insulation to give them a little bit better insulation and also to lessen the weight a little bit. I made some plexiglass windows and stuck them in there. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably just leave the plexiglass windows out. They were more of a pain than what they ended up being worth. Inside and outside, I've got some 1/4-inch plywood then over top of that 3/4-inch plywood with insulation. I didn't do any fiberglass or epoxy or anything on that. And then I used to use some stainless steel, regular old interior door hinges, 2 on each side. An RV latch set on the left door, and then the right door has got door pins on the top and the bottom. So there's a picture of the door pins I used. They came from Amazon, and then the RV door latch. So those door pins hold that right door shut, and then the RV door latch locks everything together. In terms of paint, like I said, it's kind of built like a boat. It's not a yacht finish at all, but it turns out pretty good. And I painted the entire thing with 3 coats of Sherwin-Williams Shirkhill HPA Industrial Marine coating. I've painted some teardrops like this in the past. It is by far the best paint that I have ever used. It's honestly the only paint that I use that I wear gloves with. It's a water-based paint, but it does not come off. Super durable, super easy to, I roll it on and just kind of dry brush it off. Great paint. Can't say enough good things about it. It is expensive, but it lasts a long, long time. And so here's the inside, all finished up. And so, like I said, this is a camper shell. It is not a slide-in camper, and so all of the quote-unquote furniture you see is modular. So what I have here, I've got a floor. I have a bed rug in the truck normally, so I just left the bed rug in. I covered it with 1/2-inch plywood to give me something to screw a couple of things down to, and then laid a piece of maple-looking vinyl flooring over top of it. Then I've got a back wall just to cover up the pickup bed. All I did for that was I took a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, used 3M90 to put some 3/8-inch foam on the back to give it a little bit of insulation and sound deadening, and then I wrapped it all in indoor-outdoor carpet. On the left side, I have my kitchen. It is just a slide-in cabinet. It has sliding doors on the top of it. It's got a piece of butcher block countertop. Would never have used butcher block. It's too heavy, it's too expensive. But I had an offcut from a different kitchen project that was just laying around, and it was the perfect size. So I thought, what the heck? I did put a little sink in it. Probably kind of a worthless sink, but it was nice. You can fill up a water bottle, you can brush your teeth, you can rinse out a bowl. The sink itself is really just a stainless steel dog bowl, a cheap hose on the bottom, drains into a water bottle. It's got a manual pump filler. I think the whole sink, everything cost me maybe $25. On the right side, I've got a bed platform. That bed platform actually has got, when you take the mattress off, it's got 3 compartments that open up. The entire platform itself is all covered in indoor-outdoor carpet. And then on the right side above the bed, similar to the back, I've just got a piece of 1/4-inch ply, some foam on the back, wrapped in carpet just to kind of hide the truck bed. And so that really is the inside. Like I said, it's all modular. Everything comes out and the top sets on. When I took it all apart for the winter here in Michigan, it probably took me a half an hour to pull everything out, pull the few screws I had, roll the top off, and stick it on a stand inside my shop. So that's it. I had fun making it. If I had it to do over again, I'd do some stuff differently. I would certainly make it a little bit lighter. Like a lot of home-built things end up being too overbuilt, so it's probably a little heavier than I'd like it to be. I wish I would have made it about 3 inches shorter. I kind of measured myself sitting up, and that was my goal, to be able to sit up in bed without hitting my head. And I thought I had a pretty good height on it. I really could have dropped the whole thing by about 3 inches and still had enough room on the inside. But that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a fun project.